A tragic update in the case of two missing University of South Florida students.
Today I'm able to confidently stand in front of you and tell all of you that we have located Nahida Bristy. We have contacted her family.
Now the sheriff is giving us an inside look into the investigation and the horrifying details they've uncovered so far.
This morning I'll be sharing information that needs to come with a strong warning. The details of this investigation are gruesome, and the actions of the suspect are nothing short of pure evil.
And what happens next as one of the victim's roommates sits in a jail cell charged with murder? I'm Angenette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. There's a case out of Florida that is unbelievable. It's really shocking and devastating. Two PhD students from another country, they came to South Florida to study for school. 27-year-old Zamil Limon and his girlfriend, Nahida Bristy, were studying at the University of South Florida. They were both from Bangladesh. Nahida was working on a PhD in chemical engineering, and Zamil was studying environmental policy and engineering. Sadly, we now know that both Zamil and Nahida are the victims of homicide, and someone they trusted is accused of murdering them. His name, Hisham Abugharbieh. He was a former USF student and Zamil's roommate, and he was the last person known to be with Zamil and Nahida before they disappeared. Now we're learning new details from the Hillsborough County Sheriff, who addressed the public on Friday, including how Nahida Bristy's body was found and what questions still remain as the community tries to wrap their heads around this unbelievable tragedy. We're going to get into those details here shortly, but let's give you a little bit of background onto how this all started. The case began on April 17th when the University of South Florida Police Department was notified that 27-year-old Nahida Bristy was missing. Her disappearance was described as very unusual since she was known as a very responsible person who never missed important events. The following day, April 18th, a friend of 27-year-old Zamil Limon contacted police because he was not answering any phone calls, which was also out of the norm for a person who was also considered very responsible. Investigators later learned the two students, who were both from Bangladesh, as I mentioned, knew each other, and that ignited a collaborative effort to find them. Here's what Hillsborough County Sheriff Chad Chronister said happened next.
So our detectives believe that the first stop should be back at our second victim's residence. So we go to Zamil's residence where he lives with two roommates. One roommate continues to be elusive. The stories are inconsistent, almost to the point where he will talk about anything, loves to talk about himself, and this continues and carries throughout the entire investigation, except when we want to talk about either one of our two victims. Then he immediately starts becoming elusive and deceptive. The other roommate, we learn very quickly that he wasn't involved, begins to become extremely cooperative, and at that point, he, at the initial stages, when this is still a missing persons case, notifies us that something's wrong.
As police look around the residence shared by Zamil, Hisham, and another roommate, there's a few things that really stand out, and this is where the investigation starts to take a different turn.
The doormat by the door's missing. There's some pots and pans missing. So our detectives, as hard-charging as they are, their first stop is the dumpster. They learned that the trash compactor in the complex hasn't been emptied yet in these couple days. This is where we get the first break in our case. We go out there dumpster diving. These detectives getting inside of the dumpster and empty the entire contents. And they find Zamil's glasses, his student ID, his wallet, and his clothes, which are extremely bloodied at the time. Again, this is where we get our first break. This is where, during this timeline, this missing persons becomes a missing person endangered case.
During the initial search, there were theories floating around that Zamil and Nahida were married and they ran away together. But after detectives found Zamil's belongings, they realized that those theories were far from the truth, and investigators were now in a critical race against time to find the couple.
At the time, we believe that our now suspect was at just a point of interest. We needed more information. So we have enough evidence to get a search warrant. We go back to the residence and we serve the search warrant. And the search warrant's for the residence, for the roommates, both roommates' phones, for their person, and for their cars. They go into the residence, and we have some amazing technology, one of it being Blue Star that identifies the presence of blood. And when they deploy Blue Star, they can see in the kitchen area there's a large pool of blood. They see that the blood continues down the hallway and into our suspect's bedroom. The technology is so precise and finite that we can see the outline of a human being on the floor next to our suspect's bed where he was curled up in a fetal position.
Now, this is where police start to take a really good look at Zamil's roommate, Hisham Abugharbieh, who, according to the sheriff, was elusive and deceptive from the beginning. And now there's a blood trail from the kitchen to his bedroom. What else they find is shocking.
We then examine his phone. His entire history had been wiped clean. No text messages, no emails, no GPS data. His search history totally cleared. So it takes us a little bit of time at that point because we have to do a forensic deep dive onto the phone. And what we found by doing a forensic deep dive is where we found a lot of disturbing searches. He searches for, can a knife penetrate a skull? Can a neighbor hear a gunshot? Can you bury a body in a trash bag and throw it in a dumpster? While he's conducting these searches, we also see and discover that he's making purchases for large, heavy-duty black contractor bags, Lysol wipes, duct tape, lighter fluid, a lighter. As he's ordering some of the items from Amazon, some of them come from DoorDash. I want everyone in the room to think about this. These searches were conducted days before our two victims went missing. This was calculated. This is what makes this so premeditated.
A digital footprint allegedly pointing to a premeditated attack on these two students, but the evidence, according to police, doesn't stop with the online activity.
We then look at him. He's got a laceration to his left pinky, and on the back of his left tricep, he has a deep laceration where he should have been properly sutured. He should have went and got stitches. He was unable to explain where he got those, what we believe is defensive wounds. At that point, we turn to the car. In the trunk, very little blood. On the floorboard of the passenger side of his vehicle, again deploying Blue Star technology, we see a large amount of blood there. We later find out that that's Nashida's blood. That comes back to her. The GPS in the car, once again, wiped totally clean.
So now police say they have blood evidence belonging to both Zamil and Nahida. So the next question is, where are they? And what are the chances that they're even still alive?
While we're conducting this forensic deep dive on his phone to see where he had been days prior, we're able to determine that he had traveled over to Clearwater, the Sand Key area. We confirmed that by looking at a video surveillance from a nearby fire station that shows him get out of the car. And he's around the Sand Key area. Over in Clearwater, he spends a short amount of time there. Then as we're examining the longitude and latitude coordinates, we see he goes on the Howard Franklin Bridge and he stops there for a short amount of time. So at this point, we make the decision to to launch a surge full of manpower to go out and start an extensive search.
Despite police claiming the suspect's car GPS was wiped clean, his phone tracking data tipped investigators off to the Howard Frankland Bridge in Tampa, about 17 miles from the University of South Florida's campus, and that is where they make their first horrifying discovery.
As some of our detectives are examining the latitude and longitude of some of where he had been, they're traveling northbound on the Howard Frankland Bridge, on the Pinellas side of the bridge, and they see a large black trash bag sitting on the shoulder of the road all by itself. They stop. They walk up, and as they're approaching it, they immediately smell that unique smell of human remains when it's in that decomposition phase. They go up, they physically feel the outside of it, and realize that there's human remains there. They stop what they're doing, knowing that this could be evidence. We're in Pinellas County at this point, and they contact the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, who immediately responds, along with the Pinellas County Medical Examiner's Office, who takes custody of this bag and goes back. We learned during this that it is our victim, Zamil. We're able to determine that because he's in the early stages of decomposition. So we knew it was him through fingerprints that were obtained through the Department of Homeland Security when he had entered the country. When I talk about gruesome, he had been stabbed several times, which ultimately was the cause of his death. He was bound in front at his hands and at his ankles. His legs up towards his buttocks area was almost completely severed, so he could be bent together and make it easier to place in a trash bag. He was left on the side of the road. As gruesome as this murder was, he was literally left on the side of the highway like a piece of trash.
The body of Zamil Limon was discovered on April 24th, 6 days after he was reported missing. Remember, the suspect is not in custody at this point, but police get a disturbing tip, prompting them to respond to the suspect's family home.
We get a phone call from our suspect's family that the night before he had battered and committed domestic violence against them. He had been acting erratic. He got out of the shower with only a towel wrapped around him. He approaches his sister and begins to almost in like a humping fashion, trying to grind on his sister, and at one point tries to kiss his sister. His sister has difficulty trying to push him away, and she is not able to freely leave that confrontation because he's able to overpower her. He batters the family at the same time. So we try to make contact with him. We know he's inside the residence, the family tells us, and we have him under constant surveillance. We know he's there. He refuses to answer the phone. He refuses to come out. We make the decision based on the violent nature that we know this individual is capable of. At the same time, we learn that a few days prior, he had purchased a firearm from a pawn shop. Now, later on, we determined that he never picked up that firearm, but we didn't know that. We didn't have that information at the time. Again, very dynamic, very fluid. So we activate our SWAT team and negotiators to try to bring this to a peaceful resolution. After several hours of trying to make contact, we're at the point where we made a determination we're going to go in and physically remove him from the house, place him under arrest. Right about that point, as you guys have seen the video and are watching the video now, he surrenders peacefully and he's placed under arrest without incident. At that time, we begin conferring with the state attorney who has been there since moment one, walking through this, and we're able to charge him with a bunch of charges that at that point, later on, charge him ultimately with the two premeditated murders of our two victims.
Police now have the suspect in custody, but their investigation, it's far from over because Nahida Bristy, she's still missing. 2 days later, a crucial phone call comes in.
Two recreational kayakers are out again on the Pinellas County side. And while this is occurring, The deputies in Marine Unit are doing a great job trying to determine the tide and when they're occurring and what the tide patterns are to see, hey, how far of a search pattern do we need? The divers are still in the water. As you guys were out there covering, it was a long several days as we were trying to locate our two victims, especially now knowing that we have one victim, the other one should still be in the nearby area. As one of our kayakers is fishing, his fishing line snags on a bag. He has to go further into the mangroves. He smells something, as he describes as undescribable. And when he went and got closer to remove his fishing line, he sees that a plastic bag has been opened. There's been salt water in there. He can't tell what it is, but it looks like a human body. So he does the right thing and contacts law enforcement. We immediately relocate over there, contact the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office Marine Unit that's already out there with us, the Pinellas County Medical Examiner, Pinellas County Forensic Science Department, who came out and took custody.
While investigators are suspecting this is Nahida Bristy's body, there's a forensic roadblock that delays the identification, leaving the community on edge for nearly 5 days.
Unfortunately, because of the conditions that her body was left in, it was more in those advanced stages of decomposition, and we weren't able to just do a fingerprint. So that's what took longer. Today, I'm able to confidently stand in front of you and tell all of you that we have located Nahida Bristy. We have contacted her family. We are now actively working to release both bodies for religious reasons back to the families who live in Bangladesh. We were able to determine that this was Nahida. Unfortunately, couldn't do it because of fingerprints, but we did it because of DNA. We were able to confirm DNA, some dental work that she had done, and the clothing that she still had on from the video that we saw the April 16th when the University of South Florida Police Department narrowed down was the last time that she was observed on campus.
Officials now confirm that both Zamil Limon and Nahida Bristy's remains have been found, but according to the sheriff, the investigation is far from over. They need to find a possible motive. Why would this suspect take the lives of these two PhD students?
We believe and feel that they were together and that they were murdered in nearby proximity and around the same time frame. Yes, our suspects in custody, the victims are on their way being returned to their families, but there's a lot of investigation that still continues and has continued to this point. A lot of deep dive records, a lot of subpoenas that we're waiting for answers for that may result in additional charges forthcoming. You search for the truth, and second to that is you search for the why, and I hope we find that out.
The suspect faces several charges, including 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder with a weapon, unlawfully holding or moving a dead human body in unapproved conditions, intent to conceal, tampering with evidence, false imprisonment, and battery, and he could face the death penalty if convicted. That is, if prosecutors decide to pursue the death penalty in this case. Another interesting piece of information from the sheriff, the 26-year-old defendant had a criminal record.
He does have a criminal history that we provided to you, a domestic against his brother, and at some point in a separate complex, he had entered an apartment that wasn't his, and when they caught him inside the apartment, he pushed one of the maintenance workers down, and that was a charge. It's criminal history.
The defendant is being held without bond in jail pending trial. According to a report by News Channel 8, the state attorney said he will likely face a grand jury by Thursday, May 7th. And we will keep an eye on this case for you. That's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.